Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan, live here on the East Coast, New York. Let me make sure I'm live on the various platforms. I believe I'm live on Periscope. I believe I am live on YouTube. And I believe I am live on Facebook. There's a lot going on. Let me make sure I'm live. Hold on. Live on Periscope. Hold on. I believe I am. All right. Live everywhere. There's multiple breaking news, both, I think, pretty historic. I will start with Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. This is a super chat, by the way, so if you want to leave contributions, you can. Thank you, Squirrel Lips, for the $1.99 starting us out. If you living under a rock, Susan Collins, the moderate senator from Maine, just announced that she will be voting for Brett Kavanaugh to be confirmed. And after that, Democrat Joe Manchin, up for re-election in West Virginia, who all along I told you only cares about his political future, he said he is voting for Brett Kavanaugh. So you have two senators, one a Republican and one a Democrat, which I'm using the term very loosely, sorry about this, saying that they are going to vote for Brett Kavanaugh, which puts Brett Kavanaugh at 51 votes and means he will be confirmed to the Supreme Court. Susan Collins, who was on the bubble, gave a 50-minute rambling speech on the Senate floor justifying her decision. It took her, I believe, 22 to 23 minutes before she got to her actual point of why. It took 20-something minutes to get to the actual allegations against Brett Kavanaugh from Christine Ford as well as Deborah Ramirez. And basically, the first 20 minutes was basically kind of rewriting history and saying why all of the people's opposition and concern to Kavanaugh, not based on the assault charge, but based on his actual judicial philosophy, is wrong. So she explained why Judge Kavanaugh won't definitively overturn Roe versus Wade. She explained why Judge Kavanaugh won't definitively be the vote that repeals or overturns the Affordable Care Act. She went on to talk about why Brett Kavanaugh wouldn't be decimating labor unions. Everything she talked about, there is countless previous statements by Brett Kavanaugh and reporting that shows he does not see Roe versus Wade as a done legal argument. He thinks it's open to interpretation. He also doesn't think that the President of the United States can be prosecuted, which Susan Collins apparently has an alternative interpretation of statements that he has made. So, getting away from what she said about his judicial philosophy, then she got into the allegation by Christine Ford as well as Deborah Ramirez. What she basically said, if I'm just giving a Cliff Notes version, is the Me Too movement is very important. Thank you, Gringo Mex, for the 420. I knew it. Pero bueno. Ya es hora. Thank you for the 420. And by the way, as a reminder, I'm going to say it a little bit less this time because we have important news. We're almost at 9,000 on the GoFundMe. Almost at 9,000 from 152 people. Ty and I are going to be getting back on the road pretty damn soon. So we'd love to get to 9,000 by the end of this live stream. Thank you to everyone contributing. I'll put the link here in the chat. And I'll put it in the description box too. Get us to 9,000, maybe 10,000 by the end of this. Who the hell knows? But Susan Collins spoke about how the Me Too moment, the Me Too movement, is very important, that she thinks we should believe women. She said she does believe that Christine Ford was a victim of sexual assault at one point in her life. And she said that she simply does not see the evidence from the FBI investigation to suggest that she was a victim of sexual assault from or at the hands of Brett Kavanaugh. She also used the term fairness, that she cannot abandon the principle of innocent till proven guilty, and she cannot abandon the principle of fairness, citing that based on the FBI investigation, and press the share button, get this out on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube, based on the FBI investigation, there was nothing in there that corroborated Ms. Ford or Ms. Ramirez's allegation. And that's when I tweeted, Susan Collins is full of shit. I didn't actually tweet that, but she is full of shit. And I'll tell you why. Because you cannot talk about... I actually agree that Kavanaugh or anyone, whether it's a man or a woman, most of the people being accused are obviously men. Men are entitled to, and everyone is entitled to, being innocent until proven guilty. Obviously, this was not a criminal case, but even without a criminal case, you should be presumed as innocent until proven guilty. There should not be a mob mentality. So women have the right to protest, and they should be protesting because sexual assault, harassment, misconduct has been swept under the rug for decades, maybe longer than decades. But we should not attack the principle of innocence till proven guilty. The problem with that is this FBI investigation did not interview everyone they should have interviewed and needed to interview to decide if he was guilty of these charges or innocent of these charges. So when Senator Collins talks about fairness, well, it's not fair to Christine Ford, who it took a lot of courage. She originally did not want to come out, if you remember. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So it's not fair to her that dozens of people, not just her, but Deborah Ramirez, that dozens of people who said they can corroborate the accusations made by Ford and Ramirez, they were not contacted by the FBI. And I did a video on this yesterday. The FBI was provided 7 days for this investigation. 7 days for this investigation. So you're telling me you ended it in 5 days. So you're telling me you interviewed every single person that said we might have some information that could be helpful, whether to corroborate it or knock it down? No. So Susan Collins, citing the FBI report, was basically reading a fake investigation. They only spoke with 9 to 10 people, I believe. They did not even speak to Christine Ford or Brett Kavanaugh. The FBI would be a lot better than the Senate Judiciary Committee in questioning Brett Kavanaugh or Christine Ford to see if there were inconsistencies in their story. Don't you think? So when I hear Susan Collins talking about we cannot abandon the presumption of innocence. If we do abandon the presumption of innocence, then we are setting up a very, very dangerous process for the future nominees that are nominated to the Supreme Court. Two things could exist at once. I agree with her that we should not abandon the presumption of innocence, but you cannot actually, fairly, you cannot decide whether these accusations have credence and are true, or if the accusations are not true, without doing a full and thorough investigation, which they did not. You can't tell me if there are reports say dozens of people were contacting unsolicited, people who know Deborah Ramirez or Christine Ford, were contacting unsolicited to the FBI and people that knew Brett Kavanaugh. Unsolicited. If you don't speak with them, I don't want to hear about fairness, because it's not fair to the accusers. There was not a thorough investigation into this. And I think Susan Collins essentially said, listen, I'm a Republican. I'm not going to be the vote that deprives the Republican Party of a 5-4 majority on the Supreme Court, possibly for decades. So, this is the investigation in front of me. Oh well, they didn't talk to dozens of people who said they might have information. Oh well. And Collins put it at 50. So it could have been a 50-50 tie if Democrat Joe Manchin did not decide to vote for Brett Kavanaugh. But, as I tweeted earlier in the day, Joe Manchin doesn't believe in doing what's right or wrong. He believes in doing what will get him reelected. Virginia is the most popular state in the country as far as popularity for President Trump, and Joe Manchin's up for reelection. Here is Joe Manchin's statement on why he is voting. The only Democrat to vote for Brett Kavanaugh. From the start of this process, I promised my constituents that I would look seriously at Judge Kavanaugh's record and cast my vote based on the facts I have before me and what is best for West Virginia. I met with the nominee for over 2 hours, attended his hearings, spoke with constitutional experts, and heard from thousands of West Virginians. I have reservations about this vote given the serious accusations against Judge Kavanaugh and the temperament he displayed in the hearing. And my heart goes out to anyone who has experienced any type of sexual assault in their life. However, based on all the information I have available to me, including the recently completed FBI report, I have found Judge Kavanaugh to be a qualified jurist who will follow the Constitution and determine cases based on the legal findings before him. I do hope that Judge Kavanaugh will not allow the partisan nature this process took to follow him onto the court. With respect to any cases that may come before him impacting the 800,000 West Virginians with pre-existing conditions, Judge Kavanaugh assured me personally that he would consider the human impacts and approach any decision with surgical precision to avoid unintended consequences. That is why I voted to confirm Judge Kavanaugh's nomination to serve in the Supreme Court. I believe he will rule in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution. That is, quote unquote, Democrat Joe Manchin. And by the way, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, if you want to call him a leader, has basically said, I'm not going to punish any of my people. I'm not going to punish any of my people who decide to vote for Brett Kavanaugh. Thank you, Desi Murgy, $5. What is the procedure necessary to introduce term limits for Supreme Court judges? Why is it no term limits in the first place? Because we live in an oligarchy. That's why. And the Constitution gave them permanent life sentences. So, who is more of the coward? Joe Manchin or Susan Collins? I think they're both cowards. And the bottom line is this. If the FBI did an investigation for 7 days, which they were given, 7 days, but they wrapped it up in 5. And at the end of those 7 days, they simply said, this is the time we were allotted. We weren't able to speak with every single person that said they had information because we only had 7 days. That would be one thing. Well, they did it in 5 days while the president and his White House that approved it were going around the country mocking a sexual assault victim, Christine Ford, and basically saying Kavanaugh should be nominated. So you're telling me that this was a real investigation when the White House was, while the FBI was investigating, say he should be nominated, mocking Christine Ford, and they wrapped it up in 5 days, not even using all the time that they were given. Bullshit. And you're telling me that the Democratic Party is the party of the working people, when one of its senators voted for a man accused of sexual assault by multiple women and sexual misconduct by multiple women, a man who, I talked to him and he told me he would take into account the human impact of repealing the Affordable Care Act. Joe Manchin knows Brett Kavanaugh and these Republicans can care less about the human impact. You know what Joe Manchin cares about? The human impact on Joe Manchin if he loses re-election in West Virginia. That's what he cares about. And that's why he voted yes. Because if he would have voted no, Trump would have used it against him. He would have barnstormed West Virginia to vote him out, because Joe Manchin is, I believe, up right now by 4 or 5 points, and that could quickly go away if he would have voted against Brett Kavanaugh. So Joe Manchin is a coward. Got to give credit to Heidi Heitkamp, who I think is corrupt on all other accounts, but at least she voted no in this instance. But Brett Kavanaugh will be confirmed. Jeff Flake has said he will vote for confirmation. Susan Collins has said he will vote for confirmation. And Joe Manchin has said he will vote for confirmation. Lisa Murkowski was the only Republican to say she will not vote for his confirmation, while Joe Manchin is the only Democrat who says he will. I think there's another element here. Bigger than just Brett Kavanaugh. When you have in political parties, because we only have one party in this country, Democrats and Republicans might as well be the same. One's a little better on social issues and cultural issues, but economically they're both corrupt. They're for the 1%, they're for their donors, and that's it. But when the entire U.S. government is predominantly old white men, it's not such a coincidence that you get decisions that end up protecting older white men. It's not a coincidence that Mitch McConnell rammed this through. It's not a coincidence that Chuck Grassley rammed this through. It's not a coincidence that Orrin Hatch, who might as well be a dinosaur, rammed this through. That's why it's so important that so many women are running this year. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have more younger men running. I'm not trying to be sexist. But you cannot have a government for the people that are represented predominantly by one type of person, old white men who grew up in a different time, who grew up in a time when maybe doing certain things to women, it was more appropriate. It was more, that's just how things were. This process was doomed from the start because you literally have old grumpy white men making the decisions. Thank you, Neilon. $5 says progressive for life. But I don't want to hear about the FBI investigation. It wasn't an investigation. It was a total sham. And Susan Collins knows that. But you want to know something? Really what this came down to is, did Susan Collins, for the rest of her career in life, want to get the scorn from women and sexual assault victims, or get the scorn of the entire conservative movement in this country? And she chose women and sexual assault survivors. That's what it comes down to. Because she's a smart woman. So for her to say, she used the term fairness, if she thinks it's fair that an investigation ignored dozens of people, and by the way, those dozens of people who would have possibly been talked to could have ended up proving Kavanaugh's innocence. I am not one who says he's guilty right away. I wanted to see all the evidence. That's why we need an investigation. I don't believe in mob mentality. We shouldn't bring down any man just because women deserve to be believed. Not every situation is the same. I am inclined to trust women, and if a woman makes an accusation, I am inclined to believe her. But with that said, I want to also see the facts, the specifics, the context, who was involved, where it happened, and all of those information. I don't want to borrow from Ronald Reagan, but I believe you should trust women, but you should also verify it. So the bottom line is this, because I want to move on to LaQuan McDonald. The bottom line is this. This was doomed from the start because you have old grumpy white men making decisions about women, about what constitutes assault, what doesn't, what constitutes misconduct by a man, what doesn't. And if you believe that the FBI had full reign to do whatever the hell they want, I have a bridge to sell you. I have a bridge to sell you. And take it from me, because, I've already spoken about it, and I've already talked about it in the past. I'm familiar with this topic. I had an accusation against me. It was false. And I've already explained it months ago. Thankfully, people that have looked into it and looked at the facts know it's false. But I do believe anyone accused is entitled to an actual investigation so people could look into it. If you're actually innocent, you should want it to be investigated. And you have nothing to hide. But I also believe if there are multiple women making accusations, and if there are dozens of people that might be able to corroborate what the women are saying, you can't make a decision until you speak with all of those players involved. Period, end of story. Period, end of story. So I am pretty dismayed at this. I think putting aside the accusations against him by the women, I think he shouldn't have been on the Supreme Court to begin with. He doesn't believe Roe versus Wade. He has put in writing it's open to interpretation. He also, frankly, doesn't believe that a president could be prosecuted. Well, that's dangerous, particularly for this president, but any president. He's going to be on the Supreme Court for 30 years. What if a Democratic president has broken the law? Well, according to this guy, the president can do whatever he wants, legal or illegal. And I think Susan Collins is extremely naive if she thinks that he will take in, or Manchin thinks, he'll take into account the human effect. The human effect. When it comes to possibly voting on decisions that could repeal Obamacare or things like that. Let me know what you think. I think I know what you think, but the super chat is going. Feel free to leave a couple bucks. As a reminder, the GoFundMe is almost at $9,000. So if you wanna contribute, let us know. Before I move on to LaQuan McDonald, my business partner Jen has just walked into the building. She, I believe, is a woman, so I would like to get her opinion. Come over to the microphone, Jen. Come over. And Jen was in a meeting, so she didn't see Colin's whole speech, but I believe she knows what is going on. Take a seat. Let the viewers know what you think.
I bet they'll like my shirt too. Bernie, guys. What am I talking about?
Susan Collins voting yes, citing fairness and citing that the investigation did not show any corroboration. And then Joe Manchin voting yes, so he's going to get approved. Confirmed.
Well, the investigation was a complete sham. They didn't even interview Kavanaugh or Blasey Ford, and it's ridiculous. It's just, it's like it doesn't matter that it seems very true that the facts line up that he obviously did this. I mean, due process is important and all that, but there's no chance here. This FBI investigation was not an investigation. It was a total sham. There are so many people pulling the strings in the background of this, including the corporate media, including, wealthy people who are funneling money into Kavanaugh's nomination and him getting on the court. Like, the amount of money behind this, it doesn't matter what the truth is. What matters to these people is that is this message for me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, what matters to these people is that he's confirmed no matter what. It doesn't matter. Thank you. Tommy Tahifi Bayless says, Jen is a woman. That is true.
And Tommy Tahifi Bayless is currently in the hospital.
He's very sick.
Yes.
$5 for having Jen on the show. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so I'm really upset by this. I'm upset by Manchin. I'm upset by Collins. I'm upset by, well, everyone, except those who stood their ground. I mean, Flake did what Flake flaked, as we knew he would. And it's disheartening. It's absolutely gross. As a woman, I want to be heard. I've been sexually assaulted. And I feel for these women who have come forward, from Blasey Ford to Ramirez, is that right? And then Julie Swetnick. Oh, I have a new hat now. Yeah, sorry if I seem out of it. I was at a very long meeting, so I'm kind of in La La Land. And I'm catching up on the news. Like, Jordan was texting me and telling me a what was going on, and then I've been reading tweets and things. But I don't think I'm surprised. In fact, no, I'm definitely not surprised. But I'm discouraged, and now we're going to have this crazy person on the Supreme Court for until he dies. And for one thing, another thing is that they came out, the association of whoever runs lawyery, judgy things, came out and said that they're doing an investigation about his temperament. Like, they don't even seem to think he's fit to be on the stand. It's ridiculous. There's no positives to Kavanaugh being on the stand. He should have never been nominated. And once it became clear what kind of person he was, including the sexual assault allegations, including his temperament, who, by the way, if you are into corporate media like Jordan, and we're watching Morning Joe this morning, they played a clip a couple times showing that even Kavanaugh would disagree with having Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court because he doesn't have the temperament. He's way too partisan. It's awful. It's terrible. So I don't know, actually, because I've been driving through terrible traffic and all that. I don't know how much Jordan has said, but there's a very strong possibility. This is a total departure from what I was just talking about. But there's a possibility that he will be going on the road imminently, like maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. We are not 100% sure yet, but it's for a major, major news story, something that's really, really important. And so I really want you guys to think about how important your GoFundMe donations have been, how much we've raised. And actually, we're wanting to go out earlier than we thought we would, just because that's the kind of, if there's a story, an important story that's not getting as much coverage as it should be, or not being covered in the way that it should be, we want to be there. So right now we are at $8,811 of our goal, which is fantastic. I mean, we launched this September 12th. And it's already, it hasn't been shared by many influencers, which is something we're going to try to do and reach out to people. It's been you guys. It's been you guys sharing this. It's been you guys donating. And this is how far we've come. But we have a lot farther to go, especially since we want to get back out into the field either today or tomorrow. To be determined. I want to make that clear. We're still finalizing plans, looking at the news, talking to sources. But wouldn't it be...
Ty has to get out of the hospital.
Poor Ty. I feel so sorry for Ty. Ty has really, really hurt his neck, and he's either in the hospital or on the way to the hospital. So send up your good vibes or prayers or whatever's you want to Ty. But wouldn't it be amazing, Jordan, if we reached $10,000 in the GoFundMe by the end of the weekend?
I think it would be a miracle and a beautiful thing. And you want to know how we're going to reach 10,000?
How?
A couple more $100 contributions, 100 more, a couple more, more than $100. And you know what you get for that?
It's so exciting.
You get a shirt or a hat.
But you should. Why is mine?
Wait, move over so I could get in here. You get a hat or a shirt at 100, and you get both at 127.
But
so
actually,
that's
show
nice.
them the GoFundMe page. I don't know how to do it, where I show the ones that...
Oh, yeah. These are the shirts and hats we're going to be ordering. So we're going to be ordering with color.
That is cool. And for the ladies who I know... Scroll back to the shirt. The ladies I know have been asking if we're going to also have, like, fitted women's shirts. Yes, definitely. The cute ones with the V-necks and all. And then the hat. Look at the hat. That's embroidered. It's going to turn out great. It's going to look great. So if you donate $100, you get to choose a shirt or a hat. If you donate $127 or more, you get a shirt and a hat. And yeah, and then you just, like, right after you donate, just go to email jordan@protonmail.com and let us know your, like, size preferences, any other preferences, like, say you want a women's V-cut shirt or whatever, and your size and your head size. How big is your head? We need to know. And also your mailing address so we can get these to you ASAP. I don't know what else to say except getting back out in the field matters, and I think you guys will be really excited when you see it. pending us going. And reaching $10,000 would be pretty major. And even if you can't afford to donate or you've already donated, and in fact, I've seen people who've donated multiple times, which is just so cool and so inspiring. But you could share. You could share this GoFundMe page. You can share these videos, our clips promoting the GoFundMe. The GoFundMe matters so much because it's seed money, and it's also money for us to get back out into the field right now. And if only you could see what Jordan is doing off to my right. I have no idea. This guy's a weirdo. Anyway, yeah, I think my part's done. Bye, guys. Bernie shirt. Someone asked where I got it. I think it was just on Amazon, and it's like Young Bernie. Love it.
All right. So, they're moving from one injustice to, I would call the LaQuan McDonald verdict closer to justice. Let's put it that way. So, LaQuan McDonald, who is a 17-year-old African American who was approached by police years ago and shot 16 times. 16 times. He was shot for the first 2 times, and he was down already after he was shot. And then Officer Jason Van Dyke shot him, 14 more times for a total of 16. And then the Chicago Police Department and Mayor Rahm Emanuel, that bastion of progressivism, Democrat Mayor Rahm Emanuel of Chicago, covered it up, tried to make sure that the video didn't get out there. Thanks to activists and organizers on the ground, the video did get out there. That video showed in horrific view that LaQuan McDonald, who was 17 years old, posed absolutely no threat to the police officer, and he was already shot down before over a dozen bullets came his way. A jury found him guilty today of second-degree murder and also guilty of 16 counts of aggravated battery. The 16 counts for every single shot that he shot LaQuan McDonald. Just so you know, LaQuan McDonald, 17-year-old, his teacher called him respectful. His last report card, he got an A and a couple Bs. He was not known as a bad kid, and obviously had a family, and a loving family. So with the 16 counts of aggravated battery and the second-degree murder is murder, obviously, without premeditation. First-degree murder is murder with premeditation. So the jury found that he didn't have premeditation, but that he still committed murder. So with those charges, second-degree murder and the aggravated battery charges, the 16 counts, he's facing 6 to 30 years. 6 to 30 years. He could be facing more than that in total when you factor in the second-degree murder. So Jason Van Dyke is going to be going to prison for probably several decades, if not the rest of his life. Obviously, the Chicago Police Department, which I think is kind of like the mafia, said he should be found not guilty. The Fraternal Order of Police chief, which is Chicago's police union, is basically the biggest, most strongest union in the whole country, said today that it was, a miscarriage of justice, that he should have been found not guilty. McDonald had a knife, so they tried to paint it that Officer Van Dyke, reasonably feared for his life, but McDonald was walking away from Van Dyke when Van Dyke started shooting. And Van Dyke was literally on the scene for 6 seconds. 6 seconds before he started shooting. This is the first Chicago police officer that has been tried for murder in 3 decades. 3 decades. So I was trying to monitor multiple things, the Susan Collins speech, as well as the reaction to this. Chicago law enforcement and the police were out heavy duty. A lot of police presence out there. Protesters were outside the courthouse. From what I see so far, the protesters are reasonably happy with this verdict, which is a guilty verdict. And again, Van Dyke will be will spend at least, I think he's going to probably be towards the 30 years in prison. That's a lot more justice than people in Chicago, black people in Chicago, have gotten. Usually police are found not guilty or get like a probation or like paid leave via an investigation. Or, Chicago just pays for it through $1 million settlements and the police don't face criminal penalty. But I think this is bigger than LaQuan McDonald. If you were following this channel over the summer, Ty and I went to Chicago right after Harith Augustus, a barber, was shot and killed by police. There were other, obviously, black men have been killed in Chicago for many, many years. We decided to go this summer to focus on it. And this one officer being put away for many years is a good start. That's the reaction we're hearing from protesters outside the courthouse and elsewhere. It's a good start, but it's much bigger than LaQuan McDonald in Chicago, and it's much bigger than police brutality. There is a modern day segregation in Chicago. There is a modern day hunt of black men and younger black men in Chicago. There is economic despair and oppression of black people in Chicago. And honestly, the Democratic Party has presided over most of it. So if you didn't see any of the videos we did in Chicago, I'm going to play you a few so you can kind of see beyond just LaQuan McDonald, who it's not complete justice. Nothing brings back a person's life. This is a 17-year-old senselessly killed for no reason. But at least for the first time in a long time, a Chicago police officer is going to face prison time, and a lot of it. But the video clips I'm about to play for you will show clearly that this is a much more systemic problem. And honestly, Chicago, if you want to ask me, being there as a white person, it's a war zone. It is an open air war zone that doesn't get the coverage it needs to apply real pressure to the police. So I'm going to play a couple of videos, all in, rapid fire.
That money don't mean nothing at all, and we finna prove it.
And what should the rest of the country, this is a national audience, what should the rest of the country know about what's going on in Chicago?
The rest of the country should know that we get treated unfairly, we get killed for no reason, unjustly, and we don't get justice for these murders, and we need it. It has to stop.
Are you afraid just walking out the door every day? Are you afraid for your life?
No, I don't. They don't put fear in my heart. I walk up with my head out and my chest up. They don't put fear in my chest.
Are you afraid just walking out the door every day? Are you afraid for your life?
No, I don't. They don't put fear in my heart. I walk up with my head out and my chest up.
No, I have nothing to say.
They don't put fear.
Hold on.
They don't put fear in his heart, but a lot of others we've spoken.
They don't put fear in my heart.
Where is that playing from? Sorry, folks. Oh, that's why. All right, here we go. Settlements.
We don't need the money. We need the justice. That money don't mean nothing at all, and we finna prove it.
And what should the rest of the country, this is a national audience, what should the rest of the country know about what's going on in Chicago?
The rest of the country should know that we get treated unfairly, we get killed for no reason, unjustly, and we don't get justice for these murders, and we need it. It has to stop.
And are you afraid just walking out the door every day? Are you afraid for your life?
No, I don't. They don't put fear in my heart. I walk up with my head out and my chest up. They don't put fear in my chest. You hear me? It's not gonna happen.
Thanks, man. You got something?
No, I have nothing to say.
So he's saying they don't put fear in his heart, but a lot of others we've spoken to have said they're afraid. They're afraid.
System saying fuck us, so fuck the system.
The system in Chicago.
What if we go out and start shooting the police? So we go to jail, right? Oh, so the police scared. So the police right now, they shooting. You know, the first thing, they don't even... Look what just happened in Aurora, just Aurora, Colorado, just now. A white man just get killed in his own home. He killed the gunman, but the police killed him. if they're not going to listen to us when we shut down these streets, then they're never going to. We got to keep hitting them over and over until they finally listen. We shut down the Dan Ryan last month, now Lakeshore Drive. We're going to keep pushing until they budge. They're going to have to. They're going to have to.
And you know what?
More black people have left the city of Chicago within the last 10 years. They're leaving. All the major companies that he got coming to Chicago is not investing in Lawndale, Inglewood, none of the poor communities. All the money is going to Lakeshore Drive to people who already got money. So we're just trying to get some justice out here. He's not showing no love for black and brown communities. It's no secret.
And the more people I talk to, the more people who say they got food deserts, they got schools shutting down, no access to services or emergency services.
All the mental facilities shut down. He shut down 50 schools in poor communities. 50. No money is being put back in communities.
And it looks like they want to put the money into the now $95 million into another police academy.
And who's going to train the police? When the police get trained, who's going to train the police to be good police? It's not the police fault, it's the mayor fault who's over the police. They're telling the police not to do their job. Somebody got to train the trainers. Who's going to train the trainers? You invest $95 million into a police academy that's going to be trained by the same people that's shooting black people in their back. That's getting shot in their back 5-6 times. It doesn't make sense. That $95 million could have went to schools. It could have went to economic growth, development. That's what it could have went into. Not a new police academy, a pretty police academy. We don't need that.
And what are your thoughts on city council, too? Because it looks like most of the city council is basically taking in money for themselves and keeping the money flowing instead of investing.
The aldermen is doing it, and all the city councils do it. All of them is crooked, all of them is illegal because they don't care about the black and brown communities. So they taking the taxpayers' money, our hard-earned taxpayers' money, they're taking it, keeping it for themselves. They're using bribes, everything they can. All the aldermen is getting paid under the table by Rahm Emanuel, the state alderman, and he's helping them win. And it's wrong. It is all illegal. It's all illegal. Look now, Gary McCarthy just came out against Rahm Emanuel and just told on him, saying that he's doing pay-to-play tactics. So I want to see if all the newscasters going to come out and investigate Rahm Emanuel saying what they did with Willie Wilson when he was helping poor people. So I want to see if they're going to investigate Rahm Emanuel because it came out that he just got caught doing pay-to-play tactics. So we're going to see if they're going to investigate him.
And, you know, it seems like all the money also, developers send in money to the mayor and they get all these contracts.
Tax cuts. So the way it works is they friends with the mayor. They ask the mayor they need a big development. He approved the development. After they get the development, they give him $50,000, $60,000 to his campaign. But why is it that every time he get the money, it's right after they get approved for a contract? $60,000, $50,000, $40,000. That's not pay to play. That is strictly pay to play. But the problem is every time the company come into Chicago, every time $20,000, $30,000 jobs come to Chicago, the jobs never is placed to the poverty. The poor people never get the jobs. All the jobs is going to people who already have money. The jobs is going to upper middle class who don't need the money. The jobs never go to if you go in the Lawndale area right now, it looks like the old Mississippi back in the 60s. It's just poverty, burned down, abandoned buildings everywhere. Where's all this money going? Trash everywhere. Where's the money at? Nothing is being put where it belongs. Rahm Emanuel only care about money. He don't care about the citizens of Chicago. I don't think he's a bad man. I think he's a bad mayor. I don't think he's a bad man. I think he wants Chicago to look like New York and LA when this is not. Chicago is not New York, LA. This is great Chicago. Home of the Maxwell Street Polish. Home of the Budweiser. Hard-working man that's going to work and go home and take care of his kids. This is not Vegas. This is not New York, LA. All citizens are supposed to have equal justice. Everybody should be served. Our families should be able to go outside without getting their brains blew out. Kids being killed now. Mothers being carjacked. Fathers being carjacked. Come on now. He's doing nothing about it.
What's your message to the rest of the country who hasn't been paying attention to this emergency in Chicago?
Well, because Chicago has made a lot of people rich and famous, we're asking them to come back here and help us fight these atrocities and these issues that we face. Not just give Barack Obama $1 million for his library, Oprah. All the people that's out here, we watch Oprah Winfrey. I watch Oprah. I campaigned for Barack when he didn't have a campaign when nobody knew him. And everybody out here did. And so when we march in the street and say police brutality, to shut our schools down, we need them to stand with us. And that's what we're asking. And that's what we're demanding. The Rickett family came over to the south side of Chicago earlier this year, and they didn't have no type of what we could do about Chicago. They never had a plan. They never bought the championship to the south side or to the west side. So you can't come and tell us about how to build business and you're a billionaire and then bring disparity on us by hiding and not helping us fix up the south side of Chicago.
And a lot of neighborhoods don't have supermarkets, schools closing down, no mental health services.
No mental health services. Our schools are closing rapidly. We're trying to save the 4 Inglewood schools that's closing in the 20th ward. We're asking the aldermen to help us. We don't have housing. The grocery stores are all filled of unclean, unhealthy food. We have a food desert. Right now, there has not been a grocery store on 71st and Jeffrey for over 5 years where Snoop was killed there. Had Leslie Harrison build a real business community there, maybe Snoop, who is a barber and a father of a 5-year-old, wouldn't have lost his life that day.
And lastly, the rest of the country, the rest of the media, they're focusing on Trump and Russia and all this stuff while people are getting murdered, starving. What's your message to the national media?
Our message to the national media is that we getting people killed, stumped, and ICE is here deporting our sisters and brothers as they walk up and down the street in Little Village. I've been over there. I have hundreds of stories how they are coming over and taking people down to ICE, not even taking them to 26 in California, putting them directly on the plane. And so we're here to stand in unity, one Chicago. The message across the world is that we are divided, that we're killing each other, and that we're insane, and that mostly the black people in the south side of Chicago, where Barack and Oprah come from, where they were a part of, that we are wild and that we're just wild, and we're not. That's why we came up here to show that we're one city and one unity, and that if anyone wants to come to the table and help us with the people agenda, we would appreciate it. And we definitely need that $1 million that she gave Barack Obama.
Primarily, what people need to know is that right now there is a hunt. There is indeed a hunt, and black boys are the prey. They primarily have targets on our back. The Chicago police, they patrol black and brown communities like some damn Gestapo being judge, jury, and executioner. And so a lot of times when you find these young men, they're literally running for their lives. And there is absolutely no sort of respectful engagement, because here in Chicago and nationwide, especially here in Chicago, just over the last several years, there have been 30 or so unjustified shootings of young black men. And so here in Chicago, we have moved beyond institutional racism and systemic corruption. Quite frankly, Jordan, the Chicago police has no respect for the humanity of black people.
It seems to me, it's yes, it leads to the killings, but it's this aggression too. It's almost like a militarized city. We were seeing police just like parking their cruisers right in the middle of the road. They kind of, this isn't just Chicago, but they kind of go around and there's this fear that's emitted. It seems intentionally by them.
No, there is a mentality when you just have no respect. They treat black people like some sort of insurgents, like somehow that we're not citizens with inalienable rights, or our kids have no desire to pursue happiness. And so, and there are so many things that concern us, Jordan, is that we have to concern ourselves. Now in Chicago, the police have requested to carry assault rifles. When you talk about the murder of LaQuan McDonald, which was 16 shots in a cover-up, this unarmed black child was shot 16 times. But just imagine, sir, if that could have been very easily 60 shots in a cover-up. Because how can we have any faith with Chicago police having automatic weapons when they lack the ability to respectfully engage black people?
And also, there's a consent decree that was kind of negotiated. The Justice Department obviously left report issued a report last year, very damning on the police department. But the police department is fighting fighting that they don't want to have to report anytime they pull a gun. It seems Emanuel and the Attorney General, there's discrepancy where they don't want to have to report whenever they point a gun at someone, even if they don't shoot. They seem to want to really avoid transparency. We've been seeing in these killings, the body cam audio magically does not go on until after the fact. And again, we were talking, there's always reports and investigations, but what's really coming as a result of those?
Well, first of all, when you look at the very premise, as president of the Tree of Life Justice League, we provided the plaintiffs for the class action lawsuit. We were told initially that we were going to be a part of the decision making and negotiation with the consent decree. And we were just amazed when the Attorney General decides to sue the mayor for non-compliance. And then the next day, we see the mayor and the Attorney General on stage together. Never has it been so preposterous that we've seen a defendant and a plaintiff on stage together saying that they're going to work it out. And this consent decree is almost Copperfield-like. It is totally... the best use for this consent decree when printed will probably be to line your bird cage. The things that they're asking, like the point, there is actually a laundry list of things we have a problem with. But just to address the one issue that you spoke of, about the police being reluctant to report any time that they draw their gun. We had a problem several years prior to that with stop and frisk. We simply asked the police that to make sure that you're not racially profiling people, when you stop someone, make an account of it. The pushback was tremendous. They just absolutely refused to do it. So if they refuse to do stop and frisk for normal encounters, what makes them think that they're really going to hold themselves accountable for when they pull their gun? We fought hard for this particular concession for a number of reasons. Number one is that we needed to know how often do police officers feel that their lives are being threatened. Because number one, we have overzealous police officers. We have police officers that lack racial sensitivities training, that don't understand black culture. Not that we needed another report or findings of data. We're intimate about that, Jordan, because it's our blood and our death and our hardship that's in those numbers. But if the police officer refused to say that, dictate to us how often you feel threatened or the perception of a threat. This will be telling information, because not only this allows us as a community to be responsible. If we have a certain segment of our community that the police feels threatened by, we need to address that.
So I decided to play a lot of those clips back to back to back and make a little longer presentation there, because I don't really think you probably see that much. I don't think you probably hear from the people of Chicago that often, and hear how dire the situation is. This is not just a few residents complaining. This is the entire city. And Chicago is one of the biggest cities in the country. It is one of the biggest economic contributors to the country. And black people have been fleeing Chicago in recent years because, like he said, they are being hunted. I guess you know you're becoming more successful as a channel when you start getting more trolls in the live chat. So I saw one troll saying police officers are just good people trying to keep the peace. Well, I look at evidence and I look at patterns. All police aren't bad people, but there is a pattern, and there are a lot of black men in Chicago, in St. Louis, and Milwaukee and Cleveland and Baltimore and New York City, and I could go on, being murdered unarmed and in many cases moving away from the police. So you could think that those police officers are in, you could just believe whatever they tell you, that they feared for their lives. Well, then they need to then we need to evaluate their actual mindset and psychology. If you're that afraid of black people, if you're that afraid for your life, look at the LaQuan McDonald video. He is walking away from the police officer, and he was shot 16 times. Julie, thanks for the $4.99. Please accept this donation to throw in the face of the trolls. You're doing great work. And while I was showing those clips, we got $10 from Rennie. Thanks for covering this, Jordan. Absolutely. And by the way, when we're talking about the GoFundMe, when we're trying to get contributions for the GoFundMe, it's to do similar stories to that. Ty and I went over the summer. If you didn't notice, I was like a mop. I was sweating so bad. It was like 95 degrees with humidity covering that protest. But it's important to get this out. And by the way, it did not go viral. We didn't have 2 million viewers. But I cover what I feel is important and what the progressive movement needs to see. You can't get awoken. You can't decide to take action for yourself, either in your community or to go help other communities, if you don't know how bad the problem is or you don't know what the problem is. So that's what we're trying to do. That's why we're launching Status Coup. That's why we're doing this GoFundMe. Ty and I are going to be back in the field. Like Jen said, we're looking at possible stories to go out on as soon as next week, possibly this weekend if there's breaking news. So your contributions make a big difference. Like I said before, we're almost at 9,000. So thank you. I'm more encouraged that 153 people have contributed in 3 weeks. I'm just as encouraged with the amount of people contributing to the amount we have. So we're at 8,826. So I'm hoping we can get to 9,000. We'll see. Hoping we can get to 10,000 by the end of the weekend. But obviously first you got to cross 9,000. So hold on. So what I found so important about the clips I played you, it was not me talking, but what was so important was, these are people from all generations. These are older people. These are younger people who have been dealing with this for decades in Chicago. There are people in Chicago telling me this is modern day segregation. We cannot go places that white people could go. If we do, we fear we're going to get killed. So you can't tell me that this is in their heads. You can't tell me that, they're doing wrong. They're doing wrong. Anyone who knows over will get bumper stickers. So you can't tell me that. I have been there. I see the fear in their eyes. I hear. Every single person you talk to has either a brother or a cousin or a father or somebody they know that's been shot by police or arrested by police for no reason. How many black men are in jail for years with no real charges against them? So I think it's an emergency in Chicago. Obviously our politicians don't care when children get shot up in schools, so they don't care, much less if black people are getting massacred in Chicago. But I care, and the more attention on it, the better. So if you want us to get back to places like Chicago, we want to go back to St. Louis. Ty and I are celebrating, holy crap, I didn't even know. Today is literally the 1-year anniversary of Ty and I arrested in St. Louis.
Wow.
I just thought of that. Yes, Ty and I were, I believe it was October 5th of 2017. Ty and I were thrown in jail covering a protest in St. Louis. Let's celebrate. Let's get us to $9,000 by celebrating our incarceration. How about that? If you don't follow, when Ty and I were together working at the Young Turks, we covered a protest in St. Louis. That one for Anthony Lamar Smith, who was an African-American, was driving away from the police, and the police officer was literally recorded on audio saying, "I'm going to kill this motherfucker, you watch." He killed him. And what do you know? He got off. So there were protests in St. Louis for literally a month straight. There was very little national media covering it. Actually, I don't think there was any national media. There was independent journalists on the ground there, but we went down there to cover it, and we were arrested for the crime of journalism. They were a lot tougher on Ty. If you notice, Ty and I have a different complexion, so they put real handcuffs on him. I got the fake cuffs. And then we were in jail for 16 hours, I believe. And honestly, I'm actually happy we were thrown in jail, because I would have never got the stories that I got if I wasn't in a jail cell with 36 people, mostly African Americans from St. Louis, who told me horror story after horror story. I was just really pissed that I didn't have something to write with, or something, or my laptop or something. I tried to remember everything, but horror story after horror story in that jail cell that night, from black men talking about, honestly, their modern day imprisonment. You could say that's strong, but if you literally feel like you're going to walk out the door and probably be killed, if you make a wrong action, you take a wrong step, you breathe near a police officer, I don't call that freedom. I don't call that freedom. So happy anniversary, my boy Ty, and $1.99. Oh, it was October 3rd. Why do you have to ruin it? Why do you have to ruin it, Ty? You couldn't have just given me a little 2-day cushion? I thought it was October 5th. All right, October 3rd. We'll celebrate anyway. It's the weekend of. And things have not got better in St. Louis, by the way. And St. Louis, Chicago, Baltimore, all the same stuff's going on. And it's not just an issue of police brutality. It's also an issue of economic brutality. Because contrary to what the resistance elves keep telling me, when you just vote in a Democrat, it doesn't magically, bring hope and economic opportunity to the masses, especially black and brown people. Rahm Emanuel is a Democrat. He was Obama's chief of staff. And he has been one of the worst mayors in history. You say Rahm Emanuel's name to a black man in Chicago, you better be prepared for a strong response. A black man or woman.
Can I make the announcement?
Sure.
That one.
Jen has just given me an announcement that anyone who donates over $50 this weekend will get a bumper sticker, a status quo bumper sticker, and a surprise.
No.
Huh?
Okay.
Oh, as a surprise.
So people have been asking us for bumper stickers, and so I just made the executive decision that anyone who donates $50 or more this weekend will get a status quo bumper sticker. Stickers, like stick it on your laptop, looks really cool, and a surprise that you will really, really like in your package as well. $50. Let's get to 10,000 this weekend.
Do I get a surprise?
Sure.
So there you have it, executive decision. You'll get a bumper sticker, and a surprise. I don't know what the surprise is. We'll have to see.
I know it is.
$50. Not everyone has that, so if you don't, just share this. Share the video, share the GoFundMe.
Anyone who donates this weekend will get stickers.
So we will be covering, whether it's Chicago or anywhere else. To me, there's not enough coverage of the target and the economic oppression against black people. Frankly, white people are also being screwed economically. But at least white people could leave the house and not feel like they're prey. I have always said I think police officers need to pass psychological testing, excessive psychological testing, before they are given a gun. And I think if your body cam doesn't go on, then you need to be held accountable. Because in too many cases, their body cams are just suddenly malfunctioning. And by the way, Jason Van Dyke, the police officer that was found guilty of second-degree murder today, would have not been found guilty. He wouldn't have even been tried if not for that video. And that video, Rahm Emanuel tried to make sure it didn't get out. The police commissioner, who is black, tried to make sure it didn't get out. It was an activist on the ground, William Calloway, a leading activist in New York, Chicago, that got this video out. Is he? Okay. Journalist. Julie says, Ty, if you read this, please take care of your neck, man. Hope it feels better soon. Boofry says, if your body cam didn't turn on, cops should be presumed guilty. I agree. That's your responsibility, to make it totally transparent, all interactions you have. Kimberly says, no YouTube notification. What do you know, Kimberly? And by the way, folks, in addition to getting on pace for 10,000 dollars in GoFundMe, we're also on the way to 20,000 YouTube subscribers. We started at the end of February with how many? Not many. I mean, we started the channel with basically nothing, and we're headed to 20,000, hopefully by the end of October. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed. Tell your mother, tell your friend. Let's get this to 20,000 and create the media revolution we all need. So, a few public service announcements before I go. As always, definitely, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, definitely consider becoming a patron. That is long term. Our motto is going to be a mix of Patreon and membership to our website. For Patreon, you could get our video diaries. We also do monthly video calls with our patrons. Ty and I are going to be starting up podcasts, but right now he's in the hospital, so that's problematic. And we're going to also revamp the Patreon as we morph it over. We're going to move it from Jordan Sheridan Reports to become the Status Quo Patreon. So right now, if you want to become a Patreon, it's patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. Get all my diaries that are there. I give you a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that I don't talk about in live streams and other goodies that you'll see on Patreon. You can do it as low as $1 a month. Obviously, I've talked about the GoFundMe, so I don't need to say that again. I'll put the link in the live chat one more time. And also, email Jordan at protonmail.com. If you have story ideas, things going on in your neck of the woods that you think needs attention, information you want to give us, ideas you want to give us, we're definitely, a lot of our stuff comes from you, the viewer. So thank you. And thank you for a big week.
Rennie gave $50.
Oh, Rennie gave $50, so she gets...
Gave 100.
Oh.
People want their goodies.
Yeah, so Rennie's getting a bumper sticker and all that. And who's getting the... Zachary is getting
Hat or shirt and bumper sticker.
He's getting a hat or shirt and a bumper sticker. Holy cow! We're at 8,976. You know what? I'm not signing off until we get to 9,000.
Oh, no.
We are. I failed math in 11th grade, but we are $24 away.
$24. Someone can
From 9,000. So I think Oh, somebody did it. Somebody put us over. Do 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 do. Julie Alberding, $100. You're getting a hat or a shirt and a bumper sticker.
That's good fire.
Is that?
I think.
I don't know. Well, thank you to everyone who's contributing. $9,000. Holy cow. We're definitely going to be in the field sooner than we think. Thank you. I might come live. I might have to go live tomorrow too if there's some type of change with Kavanaugh. But as of now, Kavanaugh will be confirmed. Benedict Arnold, a.k.a. Joe Manchin, voted for him. Susan Collins voted for him. And Jeff Flake voted for him. So, an accused sexual predator who there was no real FBI investigation will be your next Supreme Court Justice. So he and Clarence Thomas, hide your children. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate the support. Again, patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports, GoFundMe.com/status-coup-news. And if you haven't seen the other videos, we got videos up about Bernie and Amazon this week. We got videos up about the Amber Alert system being extended to Navajo Nation. I am reaching out to one tribe in specific about going in the field to cover the Keystone Pipeline, which is going to start construction soon. So a lot of stuff going on. Thank you for watching. Peace out.